Coming up on That's a Great Point.
I grew with resentment. The
Mm-hmm.
boss changed nothing. The person did not become any more empowered, did not learn any new skills. He was in freeze state, in panic mode. Nothing changed.
Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
nothing changed. So that's an example of like totally
yeah.
unproductive, toxic triangle.
Yeah, that word resentment is one of the key indicators that we're stuck in this drama triangle. If there's resentment in any one of the roles, then we know there's a pretty good chance that we're there. Because the victim, even though they're being saved, deep down they know that they're reliant on somebody else, and that breeds resentment. Have you ever felt like nothing ever goes your way, that life is unfair, or just been upset about the weather? Do other people drive you nuts? Have you ever resented helping somebody else because it seems like the more you help them, the more that they need your help? If any of these things have been true for you, chances are likely that you've been stuck in the drama triangle. The drama triangle is a model that we can use that defines toxic relationships, possibly even the relationship that we hold with ourselves. Follow along to find out how the drama triangle keeps us and others disempowered, and how we can empower ourselves and others to step out of it. Liking and commenting on our show helps us deliver more helpful content, so hit that button. Thanks for playing along. Enjoy. Welcome to That's a Great Point, the attitude adjustment for your soul, where co-hosts Alina Doran, Michelle Albers, and Lee Smart discuss deep topics around a life well lived. Let's start the show. All right, then. We're all here. We're all here. We all seem like we're coming in skidding sideways too.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. It's exactly, we are like cars coming to a screeching halt, and you see like the tracks on the lawn.
What you know about a lawn in New York City?
I don't, but I used to live in Philadelphia suburbs. So I've seen that. What's that thing called when you mess with someone's lawn on purpose?
So
there's a name for this really terrible act where the button's not on. It doesn't, I
mean the button's not on.
You call it the button.
Oh, the button. Yeah, we already pressed the button.
You did?
Yeah, it was already recording when you came in.
It's already been brung.
Yeah. But no, what we do down here, what people will typically do to vandalize each other's thing out of fun is that we'll roll each other. So throw toilet papers all over our each other's houses and trees and make a big mess and waste a bunch of toilet paper.
Yep. The teepee the house.
Teepee.
That's what it. Yep. That took place in suburban Philadelphia as well. But there's another name.
So it is a nationwide thing.
It is a nationwide thing, but there's another thing that kids used to do where they would ruin the person's front lawn. Like they would drive on it and skid sideways and leave big marks.
Oh, really?
Like take out their mailbox. Was that the mailbox game?
Not. Isn't it amazing? What my kids are missing out by not growing up in suburban America. I mean, they get to see other things, I'm sure, but now it's like maybe social media cruelty, which is just cruel, mean.
Yeah, when we used to get done with our bottles of beer driving down the road, we roll the window down and try and make sure we hit one of the speed limit signs or something like that. So you'd always know if you'd hit it because you get a big old clang, and that was a big reason for celebration. Because we couldn't keep the evidence in the car. That's drinking and driving, right? So we had to get rid of the evidence. So we'd wait for a street sign and we'd chunk the bottles out the window. I got really good being the driver, and I would chunk it over the car towards the passenger side and then hit the signs. You do that at 80 miles an hour on the interstate, you get quite the clang.
And that could be, like the frontal lobe of the teenager and some 40 and 50-year-olds that we may know has not yet been fully developed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the risk taking just there is very little thought to, oh, hey, if I throw this and it lands the wrong way, that could change someone's life and a bunch of other people's. People don't think about it.
Oh, our population's not nearly that dense.
Dense as
I
in,
might risk hitting a gator.
oh. Oh, I've seen kids throw things from like an overpass down on cars.
Yeah. We never got that crazy with it. We never got to where we would risk harming others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I say that, and I drove 190 miles an hour down the highway before, so all it took was just one little slight slip up. I could have ended up in pieces all over somebody's yard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't
It's
help that I was driving
terrifying.
a Pontiac Firebird, and that wasn't actually a real car. That was made out of like old plastic and fiberglass. So hit one
Mhm.
gator going down the road, that'd have been just dust.
I love that you're like hit a gator. Here it's like hit a deer.
Yeah, I hit a deer too. Yeah,
Amazing. I guess
it's
it's
actually
in
more likely
Philly.
for that to happen. I just love the idea of hitting a gator. It sounds
Hit a
funny.
gator.
It sounds
Oh, that's
exotic.
such a strange, like, hit a gator. What? Oh,
It
yeah.
sounds exotic, mean but exotic. I guess in Philly it would be hit a tree or a human or a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what role do you think you were playing? As a segue to the topic of the day, Lee, when you were doing all of these crazy stunts, which role might you have been playing?
Oh, typically I was the persecutor. So you're specifically talking about our topic today being the drama triangle. And I spent a lot of time in both victim and persecutor mode. Um, Most of the time I was the persecutor. I was like, why can't these people get their life straight? Why don't they just act? What's wrong with these dumbasses? We going down the street. Like if I were to hit that person, how many points would I get? Um, so on and so forth.
Mm.
Right.
For anybody who is watching, listening, and is wondering what the drama triangle is, um, it's a model that was created by Stephen Cartman in the late 60s,
68.
1968. Yep. And it
One
really
before
talks,
69.
that's right. And
That's
right, right
that's
after
you do me, I'll owe
67.
you one.
Oh, jeez. So 1968, Stephen Cartman develops this model, and it really describes a dysfunctional relationship in many common situations. And there are three roles. And I think it's important to note that those three roles can be played by three distinct people or two people or more, because people can shift roles. And one of those roles you just named, the one that you played, the persecutor.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's called the villain, same thing.
Right.
Do you want to talk about the other two?
Well, what you got, Michelle?
This is all you guys. Tell me about it.
All us, huh?
Oh,
Okay.
I mean, I'm
awesome.
dropping in to be a part of the conversation, but I need you to define the conversation first.
Gotcha. So it's the drama triangle is a triangle that it's self-perpetuating typically. It feeds itself in that you have typically the main role is the victim. This is the disempowered one. This is the one that everybody's out to get me. Or nothing ever goes my way. Whenever I was the victim, at my worst, it was Jesus hates me. Why can't anything fucking go right in my life? Jesus absolutely hates me. So it's this victim mindset. Um, so it's like constantly focused on what they don't want. Let me tell you all the ways that life isn't fair. Poor pitiful me. It's no responsibility for their own life or my own life whenever I was, because I fell very, very strongly into this role for quite some time. Also, there's the persecutor. That's the villain. That's the one that's like typically with the villain, the persecutors needs to have control over all the situations, needs to have control over others. Um, I can't stand the way they are. I need to change them. And then last but not least is the enabler and or also known as the hero. And that's the one that's going to come in and enable the victim, and they're the rescuer. They get their own sense of self-importance from saving this person from their terrible circumstances. They don't realize, being the enabler, that to continuously save that person from their circumstances disempowers them, keeps them the victim rather than actually helps them. And this happened to me. I used to watch this triangle play out all the time in my own life. My mom was the victim. My grandfather was the persecutor. My grandmother was the enabler. And just, it would feed itself. It was nuts. So that's where I learned it from. And very much so managed to, because that I was able to witness it, I ended up in these positions myself.
Mm-hmm.
And can the persecutor also be internal?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was actually one of the key points that whenever Alina was talking, I was thinking about was like, yes, not only does this, is it an external relationship dynamic, it also can happen in our own brains to ourselves. We persecute ourselves, we victimize ourselves, we enable ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So they can happen internally. The most common examples where they take place, the most blatant, are in families, like Lee just described, and in the workplace.
Mm.
So as we're talking about, talking about the triangle and thinking about what we're going to talk about today, there's an example that kept coming up over and over and over. And me playing, I've definitely played all three,
Mm-hmm.
in my life for sure. I'm thinking, and I kept the examples from work that kept popping up in the past, from the past, where I kept playing what I thought was the rescuer, right? Like the hero. I thought I was doing the right thing. It's like this, I'm going to do the right thing. And all I was doing was taking away someone else's power and someone else's opportunity to actually strengthen themselves. So I'm thinking about a time when I had a terrible, toxic boss who used to humiliate their teammates in front of everyone in the room at team meetings. It was painful to watch. It pained me to watch. That boss picked one person to pick on and kept pushing on that person in front of everyone over and over and over in public view, embarrassing him, embarrassing him, embarrassing him. And that person, if you keep piling on someone and
But
poking,
real quick,
yeah,
do you mean piling on them in one meeting or piling on them day after day after day?
day after day after day, and
Okay.
in that meeting. So we had weekly team meetings, and watching this boss flog flog this person publicly, just embarrass them in front of everyone, I was embarrassed on the boss's behalf. This was an exception in that I've been very lucky to mostly work with leaders who are awesome. I happen to work with likely someone who meets the requirements of a psychopath in this case. And so this person used to just destroy this person. And you see them kind of shrinking, their spirit just withering away all the time. And if you keep doing that to someone, they're going to have a really hard time getting better at what their mistakes are, right? Because they're going to start messing up even more because the pressure's on them, right? Lots of people, some may react in a productive way and start growing. Many people will start shrinking and getting worse and doubting themselves and receding. So I stepped in as a hero. And after the meeting, or even during the meeting, I said, you know what? No problem. We'll get it done. And after the meeting, I ended up spending like evenings with this person, teaching him how to do the thing that he wasn't doing right, showing him what was missing, showing him. He kept trouble getting it, and he wasn't getting it, and he was working very slow. And I ended up spending my evenings working on his material on top of what I had to do, my workload, and then coming home later to see my kids. And the resentment started to build in me. And in the end, the boss, and I talked to the boss because I didn't want to hide it from the boss. And I said, look, I think, a little bit of help will go a long way. I've sat down and I've, been working with him, with this person, trying to help him and hoping for, results to lift him up. The boss was actually trying to just bury him and was hoping that he would quit. So the boss did not know how to. That was their way of managing a person, was putting so much pressure on them and not supporting their growth or talking up front about what's missing and addressing it, and instead just loading them up with criticism and work until they're just they break.
Right,
And
right. That's the whole idea of I'm gonna throw you into the deep end, you're gonna sink or swim.
yeah, and that maneuver can be out of love, right? There are parents who teach their kids how to swim, and that's their intention. They will be there. Whether I personally agree with it as a parent or not is a separate issue, but a mom, dad, a parent may do that to somebody they love, to a child, throw them literally into the deep end. And if they see that they're drowning or they're struggling, they're going to jump right in and immediately rescue them. They're not going to let them go down and die. Right? In this example, in the workplace, the boss specifically wanted to see this person jump into the deep end of the proverbial pool and drown equals be fired, get
Right, right,
themselves or
right.
quit. So it kept going and going and going and just degraded the environment. And I grew with resentment. The
Hmm.
boss changed nothing. The person did not become any more empowered, did not learn any new skills. He was in freeze state, in panic mode. Nothing changed.
Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
nothing changed. So that's an example of like totally
yeah.
unproductive, toxic triangle.
Yeah, that word resentment is one of the key indicators that we're stuck in this drama triangle. If there's resentment in any one of the roles, then we know there's a pretty good chance that we're there. Because the victim, even though they're being saved, deep down they know that they're reliant on somebody else, and that breeds resentment.
Mm-hmm.
I used to watch it all the time. So my grandfather was old school Marine, and his idea of lifting people up is I'm going to break you first to build you up. But he never moved past the break you point. So it was always break, 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 break. I'm gonna hammer on you and hammer on you and hammer on you, and you're gonna end eventually. If you're man enough, you're gonna stand up and actually come alive, right? So as a young man, it's like as 8 years old, I was a stupid motherfucker and a goddamn little prick, and so on and so forth, right?
All the words of affirmation that a young man needs to hear to be his best.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I can keep on going and going and going and going about it, but
mm-hmm.
um, I would watch my mom get knocked down and get knocked down. She would fall down on her own, and then my grandmother would come in and just pick her up, set her on her feet, and say, "Poor baby." And then my mom never learned how to take care of herself ever. 5 years after both my grandparents died, they died in the same year. 5 years is all it took for my mom to pass away, because she couldn't take care of herself. My aunt then ended up being responsible for taking care of her after that, because she never was empowered as a human being.
Isn't it? What's amazing is whether the intent is love or the intent is poison, that triangle just drowns people,
Yeah,
destroys
yeah, yeah.
people. Michelle, I see you brewing with so much
Mhm.
goodness.
I mean, I was just thinking about the three roles. I mean, your examples are a little bit different than where I'm going to go with it because as I'm just reflecting about how often the enabler, the victim, and the prosecutor come in just as we do work with people in their healing. And it's like, from an internal perspective, they all give you something. Victimhood gives you the ability to have a scapegoat and not take accountability. Enabling gives you the ability to claim that you're doing so much good in the world by helping other people. And the prosecutor gives you the ability to push someone else down so you feel better, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's just like a quick
Self-righteousness is
little
the key
snapshot.
word. Yeah, when it comes to that persecutor, self-righteousness and the word justice comes to mind.
Yeah.
Self-justification and so on and so forth. Such a
Well, and
key
that's
piece
also
of
an
it.
avoidance, right? Because you're just deflecting, oh, I'm going to look at all your shit because I don't want to look at mine. And so
Hmm.
I just think about these three different things and how sneaky they can be. They can sneak up on us when we're doing the work. And if we don't recognize that they exist, that's a whole lot of stuck in the suck, because if you don't have an awareness that that's actually what's happening, like, I mean, I definitely was an enabler. I was also, I mean, all of the above, right? Like we all have all those pieces. I think we probably have stronger ones and they maybe ebb and flow, but I think everybody's done all of that at some point in their life. If you haven't, I think you're probably not human. Do you know what I mean? But like enabling, the amount of enabling that I did, it was like at the expense of myself helping other people, but I wasn't helping them. It was like, oh, you need this thing? Yeah, I'll come rescue you. I mean, I didn't have that mindset. I was just like, oh, they need help. I want to be needed. So I'm going to go do that thing because when I'm needed, I feel loved. I mean, there's a whole underlying story within that. But the idea that, I mean, when I realized how often I enabled and how dirty that was, like if you
Hmm.
really get to what it is, it's like, oh, fuck, I was an asshole, like legit full blown asshole. And then it was the process of like unbeating myself up because that was the next step for me. Oh, I was an enabler. I was an asshole. Wow, I was a total piece of shit. Now I'm going to sit in that energy for a while and beat myself up about how shitty I was before I
Uh-huh.
can get to the place of like, oh, wait, hang on, let's go into this with clarity. Like, none of that was intentional. You were doing the best you could with what you knew. Give yourself some compassion and now you know. So what does it look like going forward? And then the answer is, I don't fucking know. I've never shown up any other way. And it's
Oh
just like,
boy.
wait, what? Victimhood is another one, right? I don't know. They're just, that was just one specific example. I've done them all.
Sure.
But that
Sure. If
process of holy shit, the awareness.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, if you haven't tried them, please do.
Yeah.
If you have not yet tried them, please go ahead and experiment. Well, you're talking about assholes, and naturally, as I was thinking about the roles in the drama triangle, like the five asshole archetypes in my framework squarely fall into these as well. Right? There's absolutely the victim and the persecutor and the rescuer in all of them. And it is very much that realization of, oh, what I was doing. And it's what I was doing to myself, and it's what I was doing to someone else.
Hmm.
And there's always a payoff,
Hmm.
always. And the payoff might be the deflection of, I don't have to see it. It could be justification, right? That's what the righteousness, right? Absolutely. That Lee was just talking about. It's the, you see, I should continue not changing anything. I
Well, and I
should,
think it's
yeah.
interesting because, like, from an enabler perspective, I grew up in a culture, and I'm not just talking family, I'm talking like friend circles, like school, like everywhere that I went. If you weren't an enabler, you were an asshole. You were a jerk. How dare you not help them? What
Hmm.
a cruel person you must be.
Oh,
So everybody's just in avoidance. you know,
Hmm.
wait, what do
oh,
you mean
yeah.
I don't? I have to find my power. I have to make this choice. I have to do this thing. What do you mean you're not going to come help? How rude.
Yeah.
I'm Minnesota
Oh,
nice, guys.
that Minnesota nice. I love it. Uh, we had we had nice. I worked for a large media entertainment company, the name of which I won't share. A lovely company, one of the big ones. We called it the company name Nice, just like Minnesota Nice. Of like you're breaking on the inside, or you're so angry you could burst, but you're going to be so smiley and positive in every meeting. You are going to be very optimistic.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel that way, but you're going to be. Are you not going to be nice? But that doesn't go. You know that
Yeah,
doesn't go.
the fake it till you make it kind of idea. That
Um,
fucking drives me
well,
nuts.
that's,
Like,
I
yeah, we're
think,
gonna start off by lying to ourselves.
I
But
mean, I think by fake it till you make it could be taken into, I think that kind of want to, that's a vignette I really want to explore because I think there's a gradient.
right,
I have strong views. Part of it feels fake, part of it feels like a embodiment and stepping into who you might truly be, but are not
right.
yet acting as, but you really have been. So it's unearthing. So I think there's a
Yeah.
gradient.
It's like with anything that we talk about, there we can go not enough or way over index.
Yes, yes,
And I
totally.
find a lot of like what it almost sounds like your nice protocol is like way over indexing.
Well, the
Um,
nice protocol, right? The Minnesota nice, right?
beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yep. And in a group dynamic, getting stuck in one of these three roles of the drama triangle, it like there's an emboldening and a pressure, societal pressure, community, whether it's a work culture, whether it's Minnesota nice, whether it's religious affiliations of any no I don't know any religions that are exempt from this. It's an equal opportunity offender. Certainly families, like larger ones, where you have this understanding that this is what we do. This is what we do. Aunt Mildred doesn't mean it when she calls you a piece of shit and an inept father. Like, that it's her love language. It's what she does. Relax. Don't get all difficult.
Yeah.
Take it. What we do. It's like a badge of honor. Like we are rescuers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about my own internal rescuer and what that sounds like. Because we already talked about in a recent episode the inner critic, and the inner critic is a form of that persecutor. But for me, the rescuer, the inner enabler, is
Mhm.
also called the indulgent parent. So this is if we go into the pieces work like you see in a lot of areas, like in that voice in my head is, hey, guess what? You worked really hard today. You had a rough day. Things have been against you all day long. You deserve that drink. That drink would be a really good thing to have right now because you earned it today. So go ahead, get it. It's fine. That's that inner enabler, right? Um, which is and knowing what I know now, looking back on how that used to play out, it's like, ooh, wee, that's a strong one because god damn, that feels good to have that rescue that I'm not gonna have to deal with these stronger emotions that I'm not able to deal with because I've got zero emotional intelligence at this point. Um, like I don't
That
even know
res
what it is I'm feeling. I just know that there's discomfort and I want it gone.
right. That rescue sounds like escapism.
Yeah, exactly. Avoidance, escapism, numbing is another word for it. Like I'm going to numb myself to these um, just unfamiliar feelings or uncomfortable feelings that I don't have healthy coping mechanisms to deal with.
I think the discernment between consciously doing it, there is a world where one sees and understands, you know what? I am using this as a temporary band aid. I am choosing not to look at it right now. I am deciding that it's too much. And right now, this season, I'm not looking at it. And so I am not addressing it. So doing it with eyes wide open has a very different quality to it than like what? I did work all day in your example. Like, shouldn't I have something nice just for me? I've been doing
Mm-hmm.
things for other people all day. Shouldn't I have something?
Yeah, yeah. That pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream sounds really good right now, or
Yeah,
that bottle of
fucking does.
wine, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Brownie Sunday. I mean,
I'm just thinking about the triangle.
yeah,
Once you know, like once you have the awareness, once you have this awareness that this exists and and then almost like there was one point where you talked about like, oh, you buy a green Honda, now you see green Hondas everywhere, right? So now that we've labeled this behavior and we can start looking for it and we have that data, how
Mhm.
does that help us externally and how does that help us internally? Like, where do we go from there once we start witnessing it? Like, you know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, how does that? I'm just curious. I
Mhm.
mean, I have ideas and ways
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do it
yeah, yeah.
myself, but I
Ding,
would
ding,
love to
ding,
hear
ding, ding.
your.
You press
I
the
know.
magic button. We're moving into round table
Yeah.
time.
Well,
Oh, I
wait.
wasn't necessarily meaning roundtable. I was just thinking like in discussion, like this is data.
Yes. I love it because that's the perfect segue to the empowerment triangle. So after the
Yeah.
dysfunctional triangle, years later, um, something called TED, the empowerment dynamic, was
Mm.
created, which is the antidote. So for every one of the three roles in the dysfunctional triangle, there are now, it's like the conversion.
Yeah.
So from dysfunctional to functional. So the victim becomes the creator, the one that has agency, right?
Right,
They
right,
take
right.
their power.
So,
They're in charge. That's one conversion.
one of my coaches, Trip Lanier, actually had the guy that invented that on his podcast. His name is David Emerald. And that right there, that episode is a really, really good episode because they go into this empowerment dynamic quite a bit. Um,
Very
so
cool.
yes, very cool.
Well, folks,
And
listen to it. I will listen to it.
yeah, yeah. So I was actually thinking that so which that's the New Man podcast, just so you know. So if you want to become a new man there, Elena, go ahead. Um so I had planned on talking about each of those in the round table. We could talk about it a little bit on the upper level now, or we can go into round table. What do y'all want to do?
The flipping, the from dysfunctional to functional,
Yes.
get into it. Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. Dysfunctional, functional, disempowered to empowered. Dun, 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 dun. Well, I'm gonna start. If I'm gonna find me some buttons, I can start making sound effects while we do this, huh?
Yes.
I mean, you don't need a button. You just did.
And
There's
that's
no button required. You can just
yeah.
do what you just did.
But gadgets are fun.
Fair,
Yep.
but I like it better when it's live and in person. Not coming from a pre-recorded button.
All right. You want to take the lead there, Elena?
The conversion sounds like conversion therapy, and that's not what this is. Or
Mm.
is it? Or is it? Okay.
We're not therapists.
That's right.
Just
We're
saying.
not therapists. That reminds me of a hilarious Saturday Night Live skit with Alex Trebek. Um, Will Ferrell was playing. Oh, Alex Trebek. And oh my goodness, not Dana Carvey. It's going to come to me. One of the contestants kept mispronouncing all of the names of the categories. And instead of reading therapists for 800, said, Alex, I'll take the rapists for 800.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it just always sticks in my head. All right. So we're talking about the conversion from the dysfunctional power triangle to the empowerment dynamic, right? So this is what your coach Trip Lanier talked to the man who created it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Called the empowerment dynamic in the mid 2000s. And the first is the victim. So the victim has no power. The victim is small. It always happens to the victim. And the antidote to this is the creator. They have the autonomy. They have choice. They are able to see, they are choosing to see where they have choice and power, and they claim it.
Instead of being focused on what they don't want, all the way that life isn't fair, so on and so forth. It's like, oh, what do I want to create in this situation? What do I really want from my life? And taking responsibility for that. I have the power. I am the one that makes the choices and the decisions that's going to make my life better. Instead of, oh, I'm so miserable. It's raining outside. We move for instead to, it's raining outside.
Huh.
Now the plants can grow.
That's the plants can grow, and I'm gonna go ahead and get an umbrella.
Yeah.
It's cool and not melt down. That's right.
Waiting on you, Michelle.
Hi. I'm waiting for the rest of the things.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay.
I do have a thing that like pinged in me though.
Okay.
When you said this particular the empowerment piece didn't come out till the mid 2000s. Is that what you said? And the first thing was in 1968.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about fucking avoidance. How the hell did it take so long? What the hell? That's ridiculous. I just said, what?
Yes, people were committed to just being dysfunctional for all those years. I'm kidding.
Oh, I
It
mean,
just shows what we
Right.
focus on. Do you know what I mean? If somebody was focusing on something helpful or more positive, it would have been created a lot earlier. That's just in my
yeah. Many times, though, just labeling a problem is more than half of the way there towards solving it.
yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't solvable before that, but I
Mhm.
just think that's a little bit funny that it took that long.
Yep. All right. So if we're stuck in persecutor mode,
Mm-hmm.
persecutor is that sense of self righteousness, like I need to have control over somebody else or control over my environment. If I am persecuting myself, it's like I absolutely have to have control over what happens to me. Instead, we relinquish that control and realize that we are not all powerful beings and accept reality for what it is. We can move then from persecutor to challenger because challenger removes that attachment to having control and then may challenge the victim to take responsibility for their own life. So it's this idea of, okay, I hear that you're unhappy where you are. What do you really want in your life? What can you do? What kind of actions can you take to solve this problem rather than just complaining about it?
There's so many examples that come up in leadership styles
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over of leaders who feel that they need to be the persecutor, right? Crack the whip. Otherwise, people will not know boundaries and take advantage. Instead of the challenger, where you set the boundaries that you're willing to be and not be with, where you're going to be holding people accountable, but you're going to give them the room. So, like in the earlier example of that particular employee being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed because he was being flogged and poked at, he wasn't going to grow and he wasn't going to get into a space where he would come up with new ideas or improve his skills or see any hope or opportunity. Shifting from the persecutor style of leadership, that role, to choosing to be a challenger, then allows that balance of you don't have full free reign because there are certain guardrails, right? We're honoring the mission of the company. There are certain metrics, whatever, what have you, that we are sticking to those guardrails. But I'm empowering you to come up with solutions, and I will hold you to what you promise. I will hold you accountable. There will be boundaries respected, but I'm not going to be flogging or poking. Yeah. Who wants to talk about the third one?
Well, I had something brewing there for just a split second,
You share.
and I'll be damned if I didn't lose it.
Something. But I'm not sure it's helpful if I'm being honest. I just don't know. The word challenger to me still feels really charged and not helpful. But I think it's just because of my definition of, if someone challenges you, that feels attacking.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So it came back around. I had actually wrote down in my notebook, I scratched out challenger and I put visionary. And I was thinking about one of these exercises that I love to do with my kids whenever they're not behaving up to their own potential, and that I will give them a reputation to live into. So, what I mean by that is, that behavior doesn't really seem like you. It doesn't seem like the person that you are normally. What I see of you is this level, this standard, whatever that is. Like I see this higher standard that you're capable of as a human being. So I give them that reputation to live into. And now once I give them that vision of who they're capable of being, automatically they're like, "Oh, wow. I am capable of that as a human. I want to live into that reputation because it's a reputation that I like."
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just raising the bar. It's opening up space for opportunity. For kids, it's to live into that. I see who you really are. I see
I
what you
feel
really
like
see, right? Like these little behaviors, that's not you. That's no, I see that. That's really you. That gives them this space to fill that.
And then there was another time that I love this story. It just makes me giggle every time I think about it. My youngest daughter was um, performing a chore, and she didn't perform it to her best ability. And I reprimanded her on it. Say, "Hey, this is not like you. This you're capable of more than this." And she ran into her room and she started crying, and I knew she was upset. So I gave her a couple of minutes to calm down. I went in there and said, "Hey, what I said in there upset you. I could see that. What's up? What's going on?" And she starts crying. She says, "I'm just so perfect that whenever I do something wrong, I hate it." So, I'm like, "Darling, come see. Congratulations. You're still human. You made a mistake. I still love you, and it's okay. And I know that next time this happens, you're going to do better because you learned from this." So it's like, congratulations, dear. You're still human, and I still love you.
Good
All right,
stuff.
and so the enabler,
Yeah. The rescuer.
the rescuer,
Yes.
the hero.
That's right. That's right. That role that I have played too many times in the past.
Also known as the savior, right?
That's
So
right.
this one I think has more names than some of the rest,
Sure.
but the savior, that savior complex is a big one
It's
because of how many people get their sense of self importance from rescuing others by being the hero. So
absolutely.
instead of
Absolutely.
instead of
It's
hero, we move into support role.
right. I mean, that's really an enabler in the most beautiful way, more of a catalyst. And that's the role of the coach. That's the role of opening up what's there, creating possibilities, asking open-ended questions instead of feeding solutions, helping the person learn to help themselves
That's it right there.
instead of doing it for them right now as a band-aid short-term fix while leaving them basically atrophied. That's really
Right.
the long term is the person is atrophied because they don't have a chance to do any reps
Yeah.
to get strong. And we see that quite a bit with parenting, with overprotection, out of love, whether you call it, helicopter parents or just overprotective, doing too much, where the child grows into a young adult and not just doesn't know how to do their laundry by 30, but then that person comes to work and then that person is someone else's boss, and then trouble ensues.
You see this in the firefighter manager, and that everything's such an emergency that I don't have time to allow them to learn to do this on their own. It's going to be expedient for me just to do it myself. I'm just going to do it. And that way we can move forward, right? And that is the enabler. That's disempowering the people below. If instead we actually just slow down and allow them to do it themselves, even at the risk of not doing it perfect, right? Because perfectionism plays such a key role right now, and that to support them is to allow them to do it on their own. This empowers them to move up to that next level to where they could take care of it themselves. And it creates independence rather than dependence.
This is, but it's very fresh right now in my world. I'm working with a client we're coming up on just about a year. And one of the goals that this client has is to build a legacy. He's a successful business owner. He's got a couple lines of business up and running and working well, and he's getting multiple new lines of business running. And one of the key pieces that we're working on that he's made tremendous shifts in is that empowerment of others and letting go of the need to do it really well and right himself. Because it's really difficult to build a legacy and a portfolio with 8 companies of 8 subsidiaries run by one person. If you're the one who's doing everything, that's just never going to happen. That's not how scale happens, right? Scale happens through systems and happens through delegation. And part of the work is the inner work of letting go, releasing, and allowing others to do it imperfectly, especially the first time, the second time, the third time, allowing room for error, right? Loosening the grip, loosening up the knuckles, allowing blood flow so that he can then focus on strategy. He can then focus on the things that he does best and where he's needed. And that's been the evolution over the past year. And that's, yeah, very, very relevant. It's the difference between playing small and growing to that legacy. That's the difference between being like an individual contributor and a manager. You can't get to the new height if you don't let go of some of that control.
Yes, indeed. Any last words?
Before the round table, you mean? What was at the round table?
I think we've already covered it far enough at this point that to go any further might be like beating a dead horse.
I do have a thing then, because
Okay,
I had a thing come in while you guys were talking about the two different things.
cool.
Like circling back to my first story, right? About how I was an enabler. And then I spent a lot of time beating myself up. So I literally went from the enabler. And because I attached to that label, I then brought myself to the persecutor and the victim because I had a lot of attachment to the label. So these labels are great tools when they're data, but when we attach to them and claim them as our own, they can become obstacles and avoidance factors. So just like when we're doing this work, we have to have words and labels to help us understand what might be going on, but nothing's that simple. And when we attach to that, like if you feel strongly like, oh, I'm an enabler and I just figured that out and now I'm going to beat myself up, like maybe you were an enabler, yes, and like, what's the rest of the information? Because there's always more. And I think when we break down these structures, there can be a desire or a tendency to strongly grasp onto these labels and then claim ourselves a certain kind of way and then think we need to be fixed. And I don't think that's actually the truth. I think there's a lot more layers to it. So great ways to observe and get information and data about you and the world around you, and also be cautious and accurate in how you navigate the waters then once you notice, because it's tricky.
The word agency keeps popping up as I hear you talking about it. It's use it for good, right? It's now that you know, don't use it as another shield. Don't swap out one shield for another, because that's still a deflection.
That and don't get stuck in black or white thinking. Like it's always going to be more complex than what we initially see. The word ownership comes to mind right now. Like I'm reminded of Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, and how big of a influence that was on me in empowering myself, because it's like always assume that we are responsible for whatever happens to us. And whenever the worst happens, the best thing that you can do is say, good. Now we get the opportunity to practice our protocol and put our protocol into place. Good. I get another rep in. Good. I get another challenge to overcome. Good. Because I'm going to be better off when I come out of it.
It
I say
needs
own
us
it all the time.
What's that?
You just own it. When you own your life, it gets so much better. But it's because you're not afraid to own it anymore. There's a self-trust that comes with that. When you have self-trust, everything changes. Everything.
Right. That's faith, right? It's faith in yourself. Aside, from whatever system of beliefs one has, in the spiritual sense, it's including yourself in that faith, in that belief system.
Right on. All right. I'm hitting the button because I feel like we done milked this one. Thank you for listening to That's a Great Point with Elena Doran, Michelle Albers, and Lee Smart. To find out more about how we can serve you, check out our links in the show description. Thanks for playing along.